People say a mother's love is supposed to be unconditional, that it never quits. But nobody ever tells you what happens when your own kid uses that love against you. I never thought my son would look me right in the eye and smile while he was destroying me. But that's exactly what Marcus did on Christmas Eve, just standing in the doorway of what used to feel like my home. He just watched his wife Amanda shove a plastic grocery bag into my shaking hands. "Take your trash and get out," Amanda just hissed. Her voice was pure hate. Inside that bag was maybe 3 days' worth of my clothes, all thrown in there like garbage. No coat, no medicine, just a bag that was basically useless against the brutal Midwest winter waiting for me outside. "Good luck surviving, Mom," Marcus said. And that smirk on his face, I'll see it in my nightmares till the day I die. Then he took my house key, the one I carried for 2 years, thinking this place was my home too. He just plucked it right off my keychain while I was frozen in shock. Then he locked the door. That click sounded like a gunshot in the freezing air. The snow was already coming down hard. Christmas Eve in Naperville, Illinois, and I was 72 years old standing on a porch my money helped build, getting thrown out just like the trash Amanda said I was. Before I go on, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? What time is it? Where you are, I want you to drop a comment and let me know, because this story, what happened to me and what I'm about to tell you, it matters. And if you're listening, if you're giving me your time, please hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. I promise you what comes next will change everything you think you know about family, about survival, and about what it really means to save yourself. Now back to that night. The cold hit me like a physical punch. I mean the kind of cold that just steals your breath, that makes your bones ache instantly. The kind of cold that kills people, especially someone my age with nowhere to go and no one to call. I stood there on that porch for maybe 30 seconds, holding that pathetic bag, just staring at the door. Part of me kept thinking Marcus would open it again, that this was all just some cruel joke, that my son, my only child, the boy I raised all alone after his father died, would remember who I was, that he'd remember I'm his mother. But the door stayed shut. Through the front window, I could see the warm glow of their Christmas tree, the same one I'd helped them decorate just 3 days before. Amanda spent the whole time telling me I was doing it wrong. I could see their living room, the cream-colored furniture I'd helped pay for when they claimed they were in a bind last spring. I could even see Marcus walking away from the door, back toward the kitchen. Amanda's parents were probably in there patting each other on the back for finally getting rid of me. The snow was coming down harder now. Big wet flakes were sticking to everything. My thin sweater was already soaked through. I had on house slippers, you know, the kind with the little rubber bottom meant for shuffling around inside, not for walking through a blizzard. I need to explain something. I'm not a weak woman. Anyway, I was a hospital nurse for almost 40 years on the south side of Chicago. I raised Marcus all by myself after I'd lost my husband. I'd been through things that would have crushed most people. But standing there in the snow, watching my son pick his wife's meanness over his own mom, I felt something inside me just shatter. It wasn't just the freezing cold, it was everything hitting me all at once. This was really happening. They were actually kicking me out on Christmas Eve, in a blizzard with nowhere to go and almost no money, because I'd given them every last thing I had. My feet were already going numb in these flimsy slippers. I could feel the snow soaking right through the fabric. That awful wet cold that goes straight to your bones. The wind howled, whipping snow in my face, and I knew I had a choice. Freeze to death on their porch or start walking, so I walked. Not because I had a plan, not because I knew where I was going. It was just pure survival instinct kicking in. The same instinct that got me through all the other crap life had thrown at me. I just put one foot in front of the other. Down those steps I'd climbed 1,000 times, hauling groceries, carrying their kids, carrying the weight of their world while they sucked the life out of me. The whole street was quiet. Everyone was inside with their families, with their Christmas trees and their hot dinners and their normal lives. Nobody saw an old woman in slippers shuffling through the snow, clutching a plastic bag and fighting back tears. I want to tell you I was furious right away, that I was filled with rage for what they did. But that's not the truth. What I felt was numb, and not just from the cold. I was in complete shock, like my brain couldn't even process what was happening. This had to be a nightmare. I was going to wake up, and it wouldn't be real. But my feet kept getting wetter and colder with every step. That was real. The wind slicing through my sweater was real. The snow piling up on my shoulders was real. And back in that house, the one my money helped buy, my son was probably sitting down to his Christmas Eve dinner laughing with her family, just relieved I was finally gone. I just kept walking because I didn't know what else to do. There was a park a few blocks away. I'd taken Marcus's kids there in better times, pushing them on the swings while Amanda stayed home doing God knows what. That was so much more important than looking after her own children. I thought maybe I could find a bench, maybe I could just sit down and figure out my next move, or just rest for a minute because I was suddenly so tired, more tired than I'd ever been in my whole life. A bone-deep kind of tired. The snow kept falling. I kept walking. And that little spark of survival that had gotten me off their porch was starting to fade. The truth was sinking in heavy and cold as the snow itself. I had nowhere to go, no money, and no friends left in Neepville because they'd made sure of that. No family. Except for the one that had just thrown me out like garbage. I was alone. And for the first time in my 72 years, I started to wonder if this was how my story was going to end. Frozen and forgotten on Christmas Eve while my son ate his dinner and pretended I never existed. But here's what Marcus and Amanda didn't know. Here's what they couldn't possibly have known when they locked that door and went back inside. That night in the snow, everything was about to change. That'd change everything, not just for me, but for them too. Because when you throw someone away like they're trash, the world has a way of showing you what you did. And sometimes, the people you get rid of are the ones who end up doing just fine, even great. Keep watching because what happened next, what I'm about to tell you now, that's where the real story starts. To understand how I wound up walking through that snowstorm with nothing but a plastic bag, you need to know how I even got to Neepville. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. It was a neighborhood where people worked hard and looked out for each other. My folks didn't have much, but they taught me what it means to earn your own way. So when I turned 18, I signed up for nursing school. It wasn't easy, but I did it. And for the next 38 years, I wore those scrubs proudly. I worked the ER at a Southside hospital. The nights were long and the cases were brutal. Gunshot wounds, overdoses, heart attacks, babies being born in hallways because we were out of rooms. I saw people at their absolute worst and their absolute best. And I learned something real important in those years: how to survive, how to stay strong, and how to care for people even when they didn't deserve it. I met my husband William at that hospital. He was a paramedic, and the first time he rolled a patient through those ER doors, I knew he was the one. We got married 2 years later, and Marcus came along 3 years after that. We bought a little bungalow in Oak Lawn. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Every mortgage payment, every leaky faucet, every new coat of paint, we earned it all together. Then William died. Heart attack at 51, right there in our living room while Marcus was away at college. One minute he was complaining about the Bears game, the next he was just gone. And just like that, I was alone. But I had the house. I had my job. I had my independence. And most important, I had Marcus. He came home from school and held me while I cried, promising me everything would be okay, that we'd get through it together. For years he kept that promise. Marcus graduated, married Amanda, and started a career in sales. They had 2 beautiful kids. We saw each other for holidays and birthdays. It wasn't perfect, but it was family, and I was grateful. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Marcus called me one night, his voice just buzzing with excitement. He and Amanda had found their dream house in Naperville. Beautiful area, great schools, perfect for raising their kids. But there was a problem. They were just a little short on the down payment. If I could just help them out, maybe sell the bungalow, and we could combine our money, we could all live together. Think of it, Mom, he said. You wouldn't be alone anymore. The kids would have their grandma right there. We'd be a real family under one roof. I should have seen the red flags. I should have asked more questions. But I was lonely in that house without William, and the idea of being close to my grandkids, of being needed again. It was just too much to pass up. So I sold the house in Oak Lawn, the house William and I had built our life in. The house where I'd raised Marcus, the house that was 30 years of hard work and sacrifice. I took that money, nearly $400,000, and I gave it to my son. I didn't loan it to him. I gave it because Marcus said we were about buying the Neepville house together, how we'd all be on the deed, how this was for our family's future. But that's not what happened. When the paperwork was all done, only Marcus and Amanda's names were on it. When I asked about it, Marcus just waved it off. It's just a technicality, Mom. Makes the mortgage easier. Don't worry. This is your home too. And I believed him. God, I actually believed him. The first few months in Neepville were pretty nice. I had my own bedroom on the first floor. I helped with the kids, cooked, and kept the house clean. Amanda seemed nice enough, always asking me to watch the kids while she went to her boutique or met friends for lunch. Marcus worked long hours, but he'd always hug me when he got home and thank me for everything. I felt useful. I felt wanted. I really thought maybe I'd made the right choice. But then I started noticing little things. Small comments from Amanda about how I loaded the dishwasher wrong or folded the towels the wrong way, or how I was too loud in the morning making coffee. Nothing big, not worth a fight. I just told myself she was just picky about her house, that I needed to get used to her ways. Then the requests started. Could you pick up some groceries? Could you fill up the gas tank if you borrow the car? Could you chip in a little? But for the bills, since you're using water and power too, they all sounded reasonable. All things I was happy to do since I was living in their home, except it wasn't just their home. Not really. My money is what made that house happen. My $400,000 paid for the down payment and then some. Without me, they'd still be renting a 2-bedroom apartment. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded and smiled and wrote the checks. I bought the groceries and filled the gas tank. That's what moms do. We sacrifice. We give. We make ourselves smaller so our kids can have more. I kept working at the hospital too, even though I was past retirement age. 3 shifts a week because they were always short-staffed and because I needed something that was just mine. Some part of my life that was outside of that Neepville house. The money I earned went to help Marcus and Amanda. They never asked where it came from. They never said thank you. They just took it like it was owed to them. Looking back now, I see exactly how it happened. How they slowly built that cage around me. How they took my money, my independence, my self-worth piece by piece until I didn't even recognize myself anymore. But back then, standing in that house, watching my grandkids play, hearing Marcus laugh at dinner, I convinced myself I'd done the right thing. I told myself family was worth any sacrifice. I had no idea what was coming. No idea how much worse it would get. No idea that the son I'd raised, the boy I loved more than my own life, was already planning how to get me out of the picture. If I'd known then what I know now, would I have done things differently? Kept my house, my independence, my money? Probably. But you can't change the past. You can only survive it and learn from it. And what I learned walking through that snowstorm on Christmas Eve was that sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. The change. It didn't just happen all at once. That's how this kind of thing works. It sneaks up on you and you don't even see it until you're completely buried in it. It started about 6 months after I moved in. Amanda's little comments, which had always been said with a smile, started to have a real bite to them. A sharpness that made me pull back even when I tried not to. "Since you're living here rent-free, the least you could do is keep the kitchen cleaner," she said one morning, pointing at a coffee cup I'd left in the sink. I was going to wash it right after I made breakfast for the kids, but that didn't matter to her. Rent-free. Those 2 words became her favorite weapon. Never mind that my $400,000 is what made this house even happen. Never mind that I was buying groceries every week, filling their gas tank, covering utility bills, and buying clothes and toys for the grandkids. In Amanda's head, because my name wasn't on the deed, I was just some charity case, and the worst part is slowly I started to believe her. "Since you're here rent-free, you should really be doing more around here," she'd say, right when I'd sit down after folding 3 loads of laundry. "Since you're living here rent-free, maybe you can watch the kids tonight so we can go out." She never asked. She always told me. "Since you're here rent-free, I think it's only fair you chip in more for the mortgage." That one really threw me. I'd already given them hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when I tried to bring that up, Amanda just laughed. "That was a gift, wasn't it? You can't hold a gift over someone's head." A gift. My entire life savings. Just a gift now, one I got 0 thanks for. And Marcus? He didn't say a word. Not during any of it. He'd be right there in the room, scrolling on his phone or watching TV, acting like he couldn't hear his own wife tearing me down piece by piece. And his silence that hurt way more than Amanda's words ever could. Because I didn't raise Marcus to be like this. I taught him about respect, about kindness, about standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. But somewhere between marrying Amanda and building his life in Neepville, my son just forgot all of it. Or maybe he never really learned it in the first place. The childcare just became expected. Every single morning, Amanda would sleep in till 9 or 10 o'clock while I got the kids ready for school. Made them breakfast, packed their lunches, and drove them wherever they had to go. Every afternoon, I'd pick them up, help with homework, cook dinner, give them baths, and put them to bed. All the while, Amanda would be at her boutique, or out for coffee with friends or getting her nails done. I loved those children, don't get me wrong. They were innocent in all this. Spending time with them was one of the only good things I had left. But this wasn't the loving grandmother relationship I'd always dreamed of. It was just free labor. Amanda expected it and never said thank you once. "Can you pick up the kids today? I have a thing." That's all I'd get. She never said what the thing was, never asked if I had plans of my own. She just assumed my time was her time. And I did it, every single time, because what choice did I have? Where was I supposed to go? The guilt just ate at me all the time. Guilt for taking up space in their home. Guilt for using their water and electricity. Guilt for eating their food even though I was the one buying it. Pretty much all of it. I felt guilty just for being there, for messing up their perfect little life. And Amanda knew it. She knew exactly how to use it against me. She'd let out this huge sigh whenever I walked in, like I was tiring her out by just breathing. She'd make little comments about how cramped the house was, or how great it would be to have more room. How much simpler life would be without, complications. I was the complication. I got the message loud and clear, but the worst part was watching my own son Marcus change right in front of me. This was the kid who used to call me every single week just to check in. The one who'd bring me flowers on Mother's Day, who told me I was the strongest person he knew. That son was just gone. And in his place was this guy who just repeated everything his wife said. He treated me like I was a problem, like he was ashamed of me. One night I tried to tell him how hurt I was. He just said, "Mom, Amanda's got a point. You do live here rent-free. Maybe you should try being a little more grateful." Grateful I gave them every penny I had. And he wanted me to be grateful. I just stopped trying after that. What was the point? They had completely twisted the story in their heads. In their version, they were the saints taking in a helpless old woman. The money I gave them, everything I sacrificed, it meant nothing, so I just tried to disappear. I tried to take up less space, be quieter, not need anything. I'd eat fast and just go back to my room. I'd clean up before they could say a word. I'd try to figure out what they needed before they even had to ask. But it was never enough, because Amanda didn't want my help. She wanted me gone, and she was slowly making my life a living hell, so I'd just leave. The problem was, I had nowhere to go, no home, no money to start over. I was trapped in a house that I paid for, getting treated like trash by the two people I gave everything to. And the guilt was crushing me. These were my grandkids. That was my son. You're supposed to stick together as a family, right? Get through the tough stuff. Every time I even thought about leaving, about just finding some tiny apartment, I'd think about those kids. They'd grow up without me. And I'd think about Marcus and how leaving would feel like admitting I'd failed as a mom. So I stayed, and I just took it quietly. And every single day, Amanda got meaner, and Marcus cared less and less. They were setting me up for something. I see it so clearly now, breaking me down bit by bit. So when they finally dropped the bomb, I wouldn't have any fight left in me. What I didn't know was that Christmas Eve was right around the corner. And so was a snowstorm, a garbage bag with my clothes in it, and a door slammed in my face. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand just how bad it got before that night. About the money they took from me, the lies they told, how they used my love for them against me. You'll want to keep watching, because this story is just getting started. The real nightmare began about a year after I moved in. That's when Marcus lost his job. He came home one Tuesday afternoon looking white as a ghost. His hands were shaking. He said the company was downsizing. Budget cuts, it's not personal. They gave him some severance pay, but it wasn't going to last. Not with that mortgage. Payment not with 2 kids. Not with the lifestyle they'd built in Naperville. I watched Amanda's face when he told her. For just a second, I saw real fear in her eyes. But then she looked at me, sitting there quietly at the kitchen table. And that fear turned into something else. Calculation. "Well," she said slowly, never taking her eyes off me, "I guess we all need to pitch in more now." I was still working my 3 shifts a week at the hospital. My nursing salary wasn't a lot, especially at my age, but it was steady, and apparently it was about to become their only lifeline. "Mom, I hate to ask this." Marcus started that evening, and I felt my stomach just drop. "Could you help us out with the mortgage this month, just until I find something new? I've got interviews lined up." "This is temporary." Temporary. That word became a lie I heard over and over again in the months that followed. I paid that month's mortgage, and the next, and the one after that. Marcus's job search just seemed to fizzle out. He'd leave the house in the morning in a suit, saying he had interviews, but I noticed he was always home by noon, spending the rest of the day on the couch or in his home office playing video games. Meanwhile, Amanda's boutique was bleeding money. She'd opened it with so much confidence 2 years before, sure she had a brilliant eye for fashion and that the women in Naperville would be lining up at her door. Instead, she had racks of overpriced clothes nobody wanted and a lease she couldn't afford. "The boutique needs an injection of capital," she announced one night at dinner, using words that sounded like she'd been watching business shows on TV. "Just $10,000 to restock and do some marketing. Then it'll turn around." I gave her the $10,000, pulled it straight from my retirement account. the one I'd been so careful to protect. But what else could I do? They made it clear that if the boutique failed, if they couldn't pay their bills, the house would be on the line. And if the house went into foreclosure, where would any of us go? The $10,000 vanished in less than a month. The boutique didn't turn around. We need another $8,000, Amanda said, not even trying to sound sorry anymore. For inventory. This time I know what will sell. More money came out of my retirement account. Then it was the car payment. Then the credit card minimums. Then it was the kids' private school tuition that Amanda refused to let them leave because, what would people think? Every emergency landed on me. Every crisis was my problem to solve. And slowly, piece by piece, my savings account was drained down to nothing. But the worst part, the part that still makes my blood run cold, was the accounts they opened in my name. Mom, we need you to co-sign on this credit card, Marcus said one afternoon, sliding papers across the kitchen table. Our credit is shot, but yours is still good. We'll pay it off. You won't be responsible for anything. It's just a technicality. I signed because he was my son and I trusted him. Then there was another card, and another, and a personal loan from a bank I'd never heard of. Each time Marcus swore it was temporary, that they'd take over the payments, that my name was just there to help them get approved. Within 6 months, I had over $40,000 in debt attached to my name. Debt I hadn't created for things I hadn't bought, but according to the law, it was all mine. When I finally got the guts to confront them, Amanda's response was like a punch to the gut. Are you seriously complaining right now? She snapped, her voice like broken glass. Do you want your grandkids homeless? You want them on the street just because you're too selfish to help your own family? Selfish. That word just hung in the air. Think about what you're saying, Marcus added. His voice was just so cold. These are your grandchildren, your own flesh and blood, and you're worried about money. What kind of a grandmother does that? I wasn't worried about money. I was terrified. I was scared because my entire life savings was gone. Scared because I was 71 years old with debt I could never pay off. Scared because I'd worked for nearly 40 years, got by on my own after William died, and now I had nothing. Nothing but bills in my name, and a family that used me like a cash machine. But they knew just what to say to make me shut up. They knew exactly how to twist the knife. If you really love them, Amanda would whisper, you do whatever it takes to protect them. And I did love them. The kids were innocent. It wasn't their fault they had parents who couldn't manage a dime. They didn't ask to be used against me, so I kept my mouth shut, kept paying, kept signing whatever they put in front of me. The hospital was my only escape. Those 3 shifts a week were the only time I felt like a person, like I was worth more than my money, but even that was getting harder. I was tired all the time. Bone tired. The kind of tired you feel from carrying a heavy weight for too long. My coworkers noticed. Are you okay? They had asked, and I'd just smile and nod and lie. What was I going to say? That my own son was bleeding me dry. That my daughter-in-law saw me as a walking checkbook. That I was a prisoner in a house I'd paid for but didn't even own. The shame was just crushing me. I'd spent my whole life being the strong one, the independent one, the one people depended on. Now I was just a victim, a fool. A pathetic old woman who let her family use her. I felt myself disappearing a little more each day. I started to believe the nasty things they'd say. That I was a burden. That I was lucky they even let me stay, that without them I'd be nothing. I stopped looking in the mirror. I stopped caring how I looked. I just stopped caring about much of anything, except not making waves. That's what they did to me. They took a woman who'd survived 40 years in an ER, who'd raised a son alone, who'd built a life from nothing, and they reduced her to a ghost. A ghost in a house that her own money built. But here's the thing I didn't know yet. Here's what was coming. I was so tired and ashamed I couldn't see it. They weren't done with me. Not even close. Because after they took all my money, after they put me in debt, after they took everything I had left to give, they were going to take one last thing from me. They were going to throw me out like a piece of trash on Christmas Eve. I was going to be left in the snow with nothing but a plastic bag. But sometimes when you lose it all, when you hit absolute rock bottom, that's when something inside you finally breaks. That's when it hits you. You've got nothing left to lose, and that's what makes you dangerous. Not because you want revenge, but because you finally remember who you really are. It all went down on a Sunday morning, early December. I was in the kitchen making pancakes for the kids. I did it every weekend. It was one of the only things that still made me happy. Seeing their little faces light up when I served them breakfast, hearing them say thank you in their sweet voices, it reminded me that not everything in this house was toxic. So Marcus and Amanda walk into the kitchen together. That should have been my first clue. They never ganged up on me unless they wanted something. Mom, we need to talk, Marcus said, and his tone just made me freeze right there at the stove. They sat down at the kitchen table and waved me over. I shut off the stove and sat down. My heart was already pounding in my chest. I just knew this was going to be bad. We've been thinking a lot about the living situation, Amanda started. She used that fake sweet voice, the one she puts on when she's about to pretend she cares. And we think it's time to look at other options for you. Other options? The words just hung there. It felt like a threat. What kind of options? I asked, but I think I already knew. There's a really nice retirement home near Joliet, Marcus said. He couldn't even look me in the eye. We went to check it out last week. It has activities, nurses, and people your own age. We really think you'd be happier there. Happier, like they've ever cared about my happiness. You went and saw it without me. My voice was just a whisper. We didn't want to get your hopes up until we knew it was possible, Amanda said, all smooth. And the good news is, they have a spot open. You could be in there by next month. Next month? That's 4 weeks away. They had this all planned out, making decisions about my life without even asking me. I don't understand. I said, but I understood everything perfectly. I thought this was my home. I thought we were a family. Amanda's face changed. That fake sweet look was gone, and now she just looked annoyed. Look, the truth is, you being here is stressing out our marriage. Marcus and I need our own space. We need to focus on us and on our kids without, another person in the house. A complication. That's what I was to them now. A problem they needed to get rid of. Mom, you have to understand, Marcus said, finally looking at me. This isn't personal. It's about what's best for the family. You'll be with people your own age. You won't have to cook or clean. It'll be like a vacation. A vacation in some facility near Joliet that I never even picked out, paid for with money I don't have, taking me away from my grandkids and the son I gave up everything for. So how much does this place cost? I asked. It seemed like a pretty important detail they just happened to leave out. Marcus looked uncomfortable. It's about $1,800 a month for a basic room, but you have your Social Security, and we figured you could pick up extra shifts at the hospital to make up the difference. $1,800 a month, on top of the debt they put in my name and everything else I'd already given them. And they expected me to get a job at 71 to pay for them kicking me out. What if I don't want to go? It came out as just a whisper. Amanda's face got hard. Then we've got a problem, don't we? Because this is our house and we're the ones who decide who lives here. And frankly, this whole setup just isn't working for us anymore. Their house, not mine. Never mind that my $400,000 bought it. Never mind I'd paid their mortgage for months. Or that my name was on all the credit cards and loans paying for their lifestyle. None of that mattered. My name wasn't on the deed, so I had no say. Marcus, I said, turning to my son, just begging him to show me a flicker of the boy I'd raised. Please don't do this. But he wouldn't even look at me. His jaw was so tight. The decision's made, Mom. We think that Christmas would be a good time for a fresh start. That gave me a few weeks to get my stuff together. Christmas. They were kicking me out by Christmas. The heartbreak that hit me in that second was like nothing I'd ever felt before. It was worse than losing William, worse than any pain I'd known in 71 years. Because this wasn't some accident or fate. This was a choice. My son was choosing to throw me away. I gave you everything. I said. My voice was breaking. The house in Oak Lawn, all my savings, my retirement. I've paid your bills, watched your kids. I've done everything you asked, and this is what I get. See, that's the problem right there, Amanda snapped. You're always throwing that in our faces, acting like we owe you something. That money was a gift. You're the one who chose to give it. Nobody forced you. I gave it because you said we were family, because you promised this was my home too. Well, things change. Amanda said, her voice ice cold. And right now you just need to accept that and move on. That facility in Joliet is perfectly fine. You should be grateful we even found a place you can afford. Grateful, that word again. The same word. Mama said. They'd been using to beat me down for months. I looked at Marcus. I really looked at him searching. For any sign of the son I remembered. The little boy who used to hold my hand in the grocery store. The teenager who always came to me when he had a problem. The young man who cried in my arms when his father died. But that person was gone. In his place was a stranger who cared more about money and being comfortable than about love and family. A man who'd let his wife convince him that his own mother was disposable. When do I have to leave? I finally asked. What else was there to Say Christmas Eve would be ideal, Amanda said, like she was just talking about dinner plans. My parents are coming to Odyssey. I'll visit, and it'd be nice to have the house to ourselves without extra people around. Extra people, so I wasn't family anymore. I wasn't even a person with feelings. I was just extra clutter in the way. I got up from that table and went on a walk to my room, my legs shaking so badly I could barely even stand. Behind me, I heard Amanda say something. To Marcus. I heard them laugh. I heard life just going on like they hadn't just completely destroyed me. And that's when I finally understood exactly what they'd done. They hadn't just taken my money, they'd taken my home, my dignity, my self-respect. They'd broken me down little by little until I actually believed I deserved to be treated like this. And now, they were just throwing me out like I was trash, like I'd never mattered at all. Christmas Eve was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to figure out how I had 3 weeks to pack up my whole life and just disappear into some facility in Joliet. I'd be there all alone for the rest of my life. 3 weeks until it all came crashing down in a way none of us saw coming. Those 3 weeks were a total blur of fear and denial. On my breaks at the hospital, I'd look at apartments online, just searching for something I could afford with the little bit of Social Security I had left after paying the minimum on the debt they'd stuck me with. But everything was way too expensive or too far away, or wanted a deposit I just didn't have. That place in Joliet kept calling. Marcus had given them my number without even asking me. They wanted to set a move-in date. They wanted paperwork. They wanted money up front that I didn't have. I just stopped answering the phone. The house felt colder and colder as Christmas got closer. And I'm not just talking about the temperature. Amanda barely spoke to me unless it was to tell me to do something. Marcus avoided me completely. Even the kids seemed distant, probably because they could feel how tense everything was even if they didn't get it. I kept hoping something would give, that Marcus would remember who I was, who he used to be. That Christmas morning would come and we'd somehow be a family again. But then Christmas Eve got here, and so did Amanda's parents. They pulled up in their fancy sedan around 3 in the afternoon, and I watched from my bedroom window while Amanda rushed out to greet them. Her mother was wearing a fur coat. Her dad carried in a bunch of shopping bags from expensive stores. They looked like people who'd never had a single problem in their lives. I stayed in my room while they got settled, just trying not to cause any trouble. But around 5 o'clock, my stomach started growling. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and I thought maybe I could just slip into the kitchen, make a sandwich and sneak back to my room before anyone noticed. I was so wrong. I walked into the kitchen in my bathrobe, my old soft blue one, just trying to be quick and quiet. But Amanda was in there with her mother. They were both drinking wine, laughing about something. The laughter died the second they laid eyes on me. Seriously? Amanda said, and her voice was just filled with disgust. You're walking around in your bathrobe with guests in the house. I was just getting something to eat, I said quietly. I'll only be a minute. That's not the point. Her mother cut in, looking me up and down like I was something she'd stepped in. It's Christmas Eve. We have company, and you're wandering around like you live here. I wanted to scream, I do live here, or I used to, but the words got stuck in my throat. Go back to your room, Amanda ordered. We're making dinner and we don't need you getting in the way. I haven't eaten all day. I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. I just need to make a quick sandwich. There's nothing for you to eat, Amanda snapped. Everything in this kitchen is for dinner tonight, for our family dinner, which you're not a part of. Her words felt like a slap to the face. Not part of the family, said right out loud in front of her mother, on Christmas Eve. Amanda, that's my food too, I said, finding a little spark of nerve. I bought those groceries last week. Oh, here we go again, Amanda sighed, turning to her mother with a fed-up look. Do you see what I have to deal with? It's always, I paid for this and I bought that. She acts like we owe her something. Something just 'cause she helps out once in a while. Helps out. Like I didn't pay their mortgage, their bills, all their credit cards. Like I didn't hand over my entire life savings. Amanda, please, I begged, my eyes starting to water. I'm just hungry. I'm not trying to make trouble. You are the trouble, Amanda screamed, and she was so loud that Marcus came running from the living room with her dad right behind him. What's going on? Marcus asked. Your mother's wandering around in her robe making my parents uncomfortable, Amanda snapped. And she's whining about food again. I'm done with this. Marcus looked at me, and for just a second, I thought I saw something there. A little hesitation, maybe a flash of the son I used to know. But then he looked at Amanda, at her parents just standing there watching, and I saw him choose. Mom, you need to go back to your room, Bunny said. Marcus, I'm hungry, I just want something to eat." "Well, you should have thought of that before you came out here dressed like that," he said, his voice like ice. "You're embarrassing us." Embarrassing them. I was embarrassing them just by being alive, by being hungry, by daring to walk into the kitchen of a house I paid for. Something inside me just broke. "This is my house too!" I yelled louder than I meant to. "I paid for it. I've paid your bills for over a year. You took everything from me and now you won't even let me eat. That's it." Amanda spat her face, turning bright red. "I'm so done with your attitude. Get out." "What?" "You heard me. Get your stuff and get out of my house, right now." I looked at Marcus, just waiting for him to step in to tell his wife she was being crazy. But he just stood there, his jaw clenched, and he wouldn't even look at me. "Marcus, it's Christmas Eve," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Please." "I think Amanda's right," he said so quiet. "You need to go. This just isn't working out." "But where am I supposed to go?" "It's freezing out there. A storm's coming." "That's not our problem anymore." Amanda said, "You have 15 minutes to pack a bag and get out, and give me your key. You can't just throw her out in a snowstorm," Amanda's dad said, and for a second I felt this rush of hope, but Amanda just shut him up with a look. "This is between us and her. Stay out of it." I just stood there frozen. I couldn't even think straight. This was really happening. They were really kicking me out on Christmas Eve into a blizzard. 10 minutes now," Amanda warned, "or I'm calling the cops to have you removed for trespassing." Trespassing. In the house I bought. I walked to my room, my legs were shaking so bad, and just grabbed whatever I could. A few clothes, my phone charger, my medicine. I just shoved it all into a plastic grocery bag. I couldn't find my suitcase and I didn't have time to look. When I came back out, they were all just standing there waiting. Amanda's parents looked awkward, but they didn't say anything. Marcus still wouldn't look at me. And Amanda had this little smile on her face. She held out her hand. "Key." I gave it to her and watched her take it like it was some kind of prize. "Good luck surviving, Mom," Marcus said. That smirk on his face, that horrible smirk. It killed whatever was left in me that still loved him. The door slammed shut behind me and I heard the deadbolt click. I was just standing in the snow again, holding a plastic bag, wearing nothing but house slippers and a thin sweater. And the blizzard was just getting started. Those first few steps from that house were the hardest I've ever taken. My feet were already soaked. My thin slippers were no help at all against the snow coming down. The wind cut right through my sweater like I was wearing nothing. But I just kept going, one foot after the other, away from the warm light in their windows, away from the life I thought was mine. The streets of Neepville were spooky quiet. Everyone was inside with their families, probably having Christmas Eve dinner right about then. Through their windows, I could see Christmas trees and people laughing. It felt like a sick joke seeing how warm they were and where I was. I didn't have a plan, had nowhere to go. I just remembered a park a few blocks away where I'd taken the grandkids last summer. It seemed like as good a place as any to figure out my next move. The walk felt like forever. Every step was a sharp pain as the cold got deeper into my feet. My hands were already numb, but I was holding on to that plastic bag like my life depended on it. The snow was piling up fast, a few inches already, and walking in it with house slippers was like walking through icy water. I passed a young couple running to their car, probably late to a party. They didn't even look at me. Why would they? Just an old woman taking a walk. They couldn't see how desperate I was, how betrayed I felt, or how completely broken I was inside my frozen body. By the time I got to the park, I couldn't feel my feet at all. The playground stuff looked like ghosts in the dark, covered in white, and you could barely see the benches under all the snow. I made my way to the nearest one and just collapsed. The cold metal seeped right through my pants, but I was way past caring. I was shaking so bad I could hardly hold the plastic bag. My teeth were chattering so hard I thought they'd crack. This was it. This was actually happening. I sat there in the dark in the snow, and I finally let myself feel everything I'd been pushing down for months, maybe even years. The regret hit me first. A wave so strong it made me gasp. How did I let this happen? How did I let myself get so weak, so small? So willing to put up with this just to have a family. I used to be strong. I used to stand up for myself. I worked in an emergency room, for God's sake. I'd seen terrible things and I got through them. I raised a kid on my own and built a good life. When did I lose that person? When did I become someone who gives away everything she has and just takes whatever scraps of love they throw her way? Then the truth hit me, settling on me like the snow on my shoulders. Marcus wasn't coming for me. He wasn't going to suddenly remember he loved me. There wouldn't be some big scene where he realizes what he did and comes running to say sorry. That son, the one I raised and gave up everything for, he was gone. Maybe he was never even there. Maybe I just made up this perfect son in my head instead of seeing who he really was. A man who could smile while he was destroying his own mother. A man who'd choose his wife's cruelty over his own mom. A man who could throw me out in a blizzard on Christmas Eve and feel nothing. The sadness that came next was so heavy it took my breath away. I wasn't just grieving for the mother I used to be. Strong, capable, and she knew it. I was just mourning all those wasted years, believing in a family that was never real. A family that didn't even exist. All my sacrifices meant nothing. I gave all my love to a son who just learned to see. It is me being weak, not strong. I thought about my husband, William. He's been gone for over 20 years now. What would he think if he saw me like this? Would he be disappointed? I let it get this bad? Or would he get it the way he always did, that I was just trying to be a mom, you know? Love with no strings, give everything, and always hope. Forever. The snow just kept coming down. It was piling up on my lap, my shoulders, my hair. I watched it build up on my hands, making them all white, and I thought it so beautiful, so peaceful. Everything was getting so quiet. My shaking was slowing down. I knew from my nursing days that was a bad sign. When you stop shivering, it means you're losing the fight against the cold. It means your body temperature is dropping way too low. It means you're dying. Would anyone even find me out here, or would I just disappear into the snow invisible? Forgotten. Just another sad story nobody sees until it's over. Maybe this is what I deserve. Maybe this is karma for being a fool and trusting them, for being weak and letting them use me, for being stupid enough to give away everything without looking out for myself. I thought about my grandkids. They're probably opening presents right now in their warm house. Will they even remember me? I bet Marcus will just tell them I left, that I disappeared without saying goodbye. Will they grow up thinking their grandma didn't love them enough to stay? It's so ironic I almost wanted to laugh. But I'm just too cold, too tired. I love them too much. That was the whole problem. I loved them all too much, and it completely destroyed me. My eyes started getting heavy. The cold didn't even hurt anymore. My nurse brain knew. That was another really bad sign. I was shutting down. My body was giving up. It was saving the last bit of warmth for my organs, letting my hands and feet go first. How long have I been sitting here? A few minutes, a few hours. Time didn't mean anything in all this white. I let my eyes close just for a second, thinking about everything I'll never get to do now. I'll never see another sunrise, never read another book. I'll never be warm again. I'll never get the chance to start over, to be that strong woman again, to prove I was more than what they made me. What a waste. 71 years of my life, ending on a park bench in Naperville because I loved the wrong people. But then something made me open my eyes. Some gut feeling, I guess. Some stubborn part of me that just wasn't ready to die. And that's when I saw her. A person, stumbling around in the snow. She was moving all weird, like something was wrong. Even with the dark and the snow coming down, I could tell something was really, really wrong. She didn't have any shoes on. My brain was slow from the cold. It took a second to get what I was looking at. A young woman, maybe in her late 20s, was tripping through the snow, wearing what looked like a fancy dress. The material was so thin, totally wrong for this weather, and it was soaked, sticking right to her. But the thing that made my heart stop was her feet. They were bare, completely bare, walking in snow that was a few inches deep. She was maybe 20 yards away, and moving in that clumsy way I knew right away from my years as a nurse. Like she belonged in the ER, confused out of it, moving in a way that showed her brain wasn't getting enough oxygen, that it wasn't working right. She took about 3 more steps and then her legs just gave out. She crumpled into the snow like a puppet with its strings cut. Something deep inside me, a part of who I used to be, just woke up. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't move at first. They'd gone stiff from sitting in the cold for so long. I used the bench to force myself up. My whole body was screaming at me. Every single movement hurt. Every breath was like fire, but I moved anyway. I stumbled toward her through the snow, my useless slippers filled with ice. My feet were burning the blood trying to get back in, but failing. It took what felt like forever to get across those 20 yards. And when I finally reached her, she'd stopped moving completely. She was just lying face down in the snow. Her dark hair spread out like some kind of halo. I dropped to my knees beside her, my nurse training just flooding back. No matter what. "Can you hear me?" I said, my voice all shaky from the cold. I rolled her onto her back, and what I saw made my stomach turn over. Her lips were blue. I don't mean a little blue, I mean a deep, dark purple. The color of someone dying from cold. Her face was pale, almost gray. When I pressed my fingers to her neck to find a pulse, her skin felt like a block of ice. But there was a pulse, faint and slow, but it was there. She was alive, but just barely. Her eyes fluttered open for a second, all glassy and unfocused. She tried to say something, but it was just a puff of air. I looked down at her feet and I almost cried. They were purple and covered in snow. When I touched them, they were hard as a rock. It was bad frostbite, really bad. This woman was going to lose her toes for sure if she didn't get warm. And fast. My own feet were pretty bad too, but at least I was wearing something. And suddenly, right there, sitting in the snow next to this dying stranger, I started taking off my boots. Well, they weren't really boots. Just those house slippers with rubber soles. But they were better than nothing. My fingers were so numb it took me 3 tries to get them off. Then as gently as I could, I slipped them onto her frozen feet. It wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't enough. I took off my cardigan, the only thing giving me any warmth, and I wrapped it around her shoulders. Then I took off my scarf, the one William gave me years ago, and tucked it around her neck. The cold just slammed into me. Without those thin layers, I was completely out in the wind and snow. My body started shaking hard again, and I knew I'd just signed my own death warrant. There was no way I'd survive this now. But looking at this young woman, at her purple face and her frozen feet, I couldn't just do nothing. After everything that happened tonight, after being thrown out like a piece of trash after losing it all, I needed to do one good thing. Something that mattered, something that proved I was still human, that I could still care even if my own family couldn't. Help! I tried to yell, but my voice was just a whisper. The wind carried away. Someone help us. The park was dead empty. Everyone was inside, warm and safe with their families. Nobody was coming. I pulled the young woman against me, trying to share the tiny bit of body heat I had left. It wasn't much. I probably wasn't doing any good at all. Probably doing more harm than good, sucking her warmth into my own freezing body. But I couldn't just leave her there. Not in the snow. "Stay with me," I whispered, not even sure she could hear me. "You're going to be okay. Just stay with me." Her eyes opened again just a little. She looked right at me. She really looked at me. Then, so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she said something. "Margaret," she whispered. "My name." She said my name. "How do you know my name?" I asked. But her eyes were already closed again. Panic just shot through me. How did she know who I was? Did I know her? I'd never seen this woman in my life, but she knew me. It didn't make any sense, but she knew me. Before I could even wrap my head around it, I heard it, footsteps crunching in the snow, someone running. "Here!" a voice yelled. "She's here!" 2 people came out of the darkness moving fast, a man and a woman, both in heavy coats and boots. They ran right to us, and the woman dropped to her knees beside the girl I was holding. "We've got her," she said, gently prying my arms off. "It's okay, we've got her." "She needs a hospital," I said, my teeth chattering. "She's freezing, maybe frostbite. Her body's way too cold." "We know," the man said, already scooping the young woman up like she weighed nothing. "We're taking her now." "Wait," I said. She knew my name. How did she know my name? But they were already gone, carrying her off into the snow. The woman looked back at me for a second. I couldn't read her face at all. And then they vanished into the dark, like they were never even there. I was alone in the snow, just in a thin shirt and pants. No shoes, no coat, no scarf. I gave everything I had to a stranger who somehow knew my name. The cold was just complete now. I couldn't feel a thing from my neck down. The edges of my vision started to get blurry. This was it. This was the end. But for some reason, I felt lighter, almost peaceful. I helped someone. With my last few minutes, I did something that mattered. I chose to help instead of saving myself. I proved just to me that I was still who I used to be. The snow kept falling. I leaned back on a tree and closed my eyes. I wonder if this is what dying feels like. It didn't hurt. I just felt tired. So tired. The darkness started to creep in, and I just let it. There was nothing left to fight for. But then I heard something else. Something that made no sense. Engines, a bunch of them, and they were getting louder. I had to force my eyes open, squinting into the snow. What I saw made me think I was already dead and just seeing things. Headlights, dozens of them coming at me through the park. I was sure I was hallucinating, that the cold had finally broken my brain. But the lights kept coming and the engines got louder. And then they were really there. 19 identical black Range Rovers rolling into the park in perfect formation. They moved slow on purpose. Their headlights were like searchlights cutting through the snow. One by one, they formed a half circle around me, slumped against the tree. All the engines shut off at the exact same time. For a second, it was just silent snow and me trying to breathe. Then, Then the doors started opening. People got out of every Range Rover, men and women in dark coats all looking serious. They stood like guards at attention, but they didn't come near me. They just stood there, just waiting, making a wall of people between me and the rest of the park. Then the middle Range Rover's door opened, and someone stepped out. My vision was blurry. It was dark and snowing, but I could see who it was. It was her, the barefoot stranger, but she wasn't barefoot anymore. She was wearing my slippers, and she wasn't stumbling, or confused, or dying. She walked right at me, totally calm, wearing a heavy coat, her hair pulled back. She looked completely in charge. The two people who'd carried her away followed her, one on each side, like bodyguards. I tried to talk to ask what was going on, but my jaw was frozen shut. All I could do was watch. This woman I'd tried to save walked toward me, her steps steady and sure. She knelt in front of me, and I saw her face clearly for the first time. She was young, beautiful, with dark eyes that held a look I just couldn't place. Was it gratitude or something else? "Hello, Margaret," she said. Her voice was clear and strong, nothing like the whisper I'd heard before. "My name is Rachel Morrison." The name didn't mean a thing to me. Was it supposed to? "You're probably confused right now," Rachel went on, and her voice was warm, genuinely warm. "And you're very, very cold, so I'm going to explain this fast, and then we're going to get you somewhere warm, okay?" I barely managed to nod. "Every Christmas Eve for the past 7 years, I do something my therapist would hate," Rachel said. "I dress like, well, I'm in trouble, and I walk through rich neighborhoods until someone either helps me or just ignores me. It's my way of testing people, to see if there's any kindness left in a world that feels so cruel and cold." My brain was slow, foggy. I tried to understand. A test. This was all just a test. "Most years people ignore me," Rachel continued. "They see a woman in a nice dress out in the snow and they look away. They cross the street. They pretend they don't see me. But you, Margaret, you were dying yourself. You were freezing to death on that bench. And you still gave me everything you had." She pointed to the slippers on her feet, then to the coat one of her people was holding. "My coat soaked with snow. You gave me your shoes, your coat, your scarf. You held me and you tried to keep me warm, even if it meant you wouldn't make it. You called for help when your voice was barely a whisper. And when my people came for me, the very first thing you said, it was medical advice. You told them about hypothermia and frostbite. You were a nurse trying to save a patient, even in your last moments." Tears were freezing on my cheeks. I hadn't even realized I was crying. "I've been watching you, Margaret," Rachel said. Her voice got softer. "Not just tonight, for weeks. I know about your situation, about what your son and his wife have been doing to you, about the money they stole, the debt they put in your name, the way they broke you down, piece by piece." How could she possibly know all that? "I'm a very wealthy woman," Rachel said, as if she'd read my mind. "And I use that money to find people who need help, people who've been thrown away by their families, who've given it all and gotten nothing back, people just like you." She reached out and grabbed my frozen hands. Her hands were so warm, like impossibly warm. I could feel the heat just coming off them. "What you did tonight," she said, "giving everything to a stranger when you had nothing left, that showed me who you really are. Not who your son made you think you were, not the broken woman they tried to make you, but who you are deep down. Kind, strong and selfless in the best way." I wanted to tell her I wasn't strong, that I'd let them break me, that I'd been weak and stupid and pathetic, but I couldn't get my mouth to work. "I have an offer for you, Margaret," Rachel said, and her voice changed then. It got real serious. "You can stay here and freeze to death in this park. You can let this be how your story ends, or you can come with me. Come with me." Those 3 words just hung in the air like a lifeline. "If you come with me, I can give you warmth, safety, a doctor, a place to live. Jay. But more than that, I can give you a purpose, a chance to help other people going through what you went through, a chance to take all that hurt and make it count." She leaned in closer, and I could see she really meant it. I could see it in her eyes. "This isn't charity, Margaret. I'm offering you a job, a mission, a reason to live. One that has nothing to do with your son or your daughter-in-law or anyone else who hurt you. I'm offering you the chance to be yourself again. The strong, capable, kind woman you were before they tried to break you." My vision was starting to go black at the edges. I could feel myself slipping away. This was it. My last chance to make a choice. Die in the snow, forgotten and alone, or take this woman's hand and see what's next. I thought about Marcus's smug look, about how cruel Amanda was, about being tossed out like trash on Christmas Eve, about giving everything and getting nothing. And then I thought about the stranger with no shoes I tried to save. About taking off my own shoes for someone who needed them more. About choosing to be kind even when it cost me everything. Maybe that was who I really was. Not the victim, not the fool, but someone who helps people even when it hurts. I looked at Rachel Morrison, this mysterious woman with her 19 black Range Rovers and her weird Christmas Eve thing, and her offer to save me. And with the last bit of my strength, I squeezed her hand. "Yes," that squeeze said. "Yes, I'll come with you. Yes, I choose to live." Rachel smiled, and it changed her whole face. "Good," she said, "because the world needs more people like you, Margaret. And you're not done yet, not even close." She motioned to her people, and suddenly, there were warm blankets being wrapped around me, gentle hands lifting me, carrying me to one of those black Range Rovers. The last thing I saw before they put me inside was the park where I'd almost died, already getting smaller behind us as we drove away. Away from Neighborville, away from Marcus and Amanda and that house my money built. Away from the life that tried to kill me, towards something new, something I couldn't even imagine yet, but something that was mine. I don't remember much of the drive. Just warm blankets, so many warm blankets wrapped around me till I felt like I was in a cocoon. Someone held a heating pack to my chest, another one on my feet. Voices were talking calm. They were all business, talking about my symptoms, my vitals, what to do next. I kept fading in and out. My body was just giving up after fighting for so long. Hours, maybe even months. Heck, maybe for years. When I opened my eyes again, we weren't moving. The car door opened and I saw we were parked in front of a beautiful building. Looked like Lincoln Park. I remembered the neighborhood from when I worked in Chicago. Old trees everywhere, and the buildings looked old and rich, like they had a lot of money and weren't going anywhere. "Easy now," someone said, helping me out. "We've got you." They carried me through these huge doors into a lobby that was just incredible. Warm wood floors, soft lights, comfy furniture all around. It looked more like a fancy hotel than anything. But what really hit me was the warmth, a real deep warmth that went right to my bones. They took me to a room on the 3rd floor, and if I thought the lobby was something, this place almost made me cry. It was a whole apartment, not just a room. It had a living room, a bedroom, a bathroom with a big tub, and windows looking out onto the street below with all the trees. "Let's get you warmed up, right?" a woman in scrubs said right beside me. She had kind eyes, and she looked like she knew what she was doing. A nurse, I realized, like I used to be. The next hour was a blur. They checked my feet and my hands for any frostbite damage. They wrapped me in more heated blankets. They gave me warm stuff to drink nice and slow to get my temperature back up safely. They kept an eye on my heart rate, my blood pressure. All the stuff I would have done for a patient like me back in the ER. I was the patient now. It felt so weird. "You're going to be okay," the nurse said, and I could hear in her voice she was relieved. Another hour out there in the cold, and this would be a very different conversation. "But you're going to be fine." Fine. What a weird word. I'd been a lot of things over the past 2 years, but fine was definitely not one of them. Once they were sure I was stable, they left me alone to rest. I just laid in that comfortable bed with the soft sheets and warm blankets, staring up at the ceiling trying to figure out what just happened. Just a few hours ago, my own son had thrown me out of his house. I was dying in the snow. I gave away the last things I had to a stranger. And now I'm here in this beautiful apartment, with people I don't even know taking care of me. It felt like a dream. Or maybe everything before this was the nightmare, and I was just now waking up. I guess I fell asleep because the next thing I knew, morning light was pouring through the windows. I sat up slowly. My body ached, but I was warm. I saw fresh clothes laid out on a chair by the bed. Soft pants, a comfy sweater, thick socks, all in my size. After I got dressed and washed my face in that gorgeous bathroom, someone knocked on the door. Rachel Morrison was standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Can I come in?" she asked. I just nodded. I didn't really trust my voice yet. She sat down in one of the chairs by the window and motioned for me to take the other one. I sat and took the coffee she offered me, just wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "How are you feeling?" Rachel asked. "Confused," I told her, "and grateful." "But mostly I was just confused." She smiled. "That's fair," she said. "Let me tell you what this place is. Maybe it'll make more sense." She waved her hand at the building around us. The Morrison Foundation owns a few places like this. It's my foundation. We give housing and support to seniors who've been taken advantage of financially or emotionally by their own families. My chest got tight. She said it so casually. Exploited, abused. Words I never wanted to use for myself. "We started this 7 years ago after my grandmother died. Rachel went on, her voice soft. She was living with my aunt who spent years draining her bank accounts taking out loans in her name, making her think she was just a burden. By the time we figured it out, my grandmother had nothing. No money, no self-respect, no fight left in her. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "Me too," Rachel said, "but it taught me a huge lesson. What happened to my grandmother happens to thousands of older folks every year. Their own kids see them as a piggy bank to break open, not as people, and usually no one steps in because they think family problems should stay private." She leaned in, her eyes looked right through me. "The Morrison Foundation is here to prove that's wrong. We find people like you, Margaret, people who gave their families everything and just got thrown away. We give them a safe place to live, legal help, money, advice, and most of all, a community." "Why?" I had to ask. "Why me? What's so special about me?" "Because you passed the test," Rachel said like it was obvious. "Every Christmas Eve, I go out looking for proof that people still care. Most years I don't find it. People just walk by me. They look away. They pretend they don't see someone who's hurting. But you, even when you felt like you were dying, you helped me. That told me everything I needed to know about you." She put her coffee cup down and looked me straight in the eye. "I'm offering you an apartment here. Rent-free for as long as you need. We'll help you fix the mess with that debt your son left you with. We can get you counseling if you want medical care, whatever you need to get your life back." It all sounded too good to be true. I knew there had to be a catch. "So what do you want from me?" I asked. Rachel's smile got bigger. "I want you to help other people. You were a nurse for 40 years. You get what older people need, their medical problems, and the big one is, you know what it feels like to be played by your own family. That whole experience, as awful as it was, makes you the perfect person to help other folks going through the exact same thing." She pulled a folder out and handed it to me. "This is some info on our case management program. We help seniors deal with the courts, file for restraining orders, get back what was stolen from them. We have counseling and support groups, and we're always looking for people who get what our residents are going through. People who can fight for them, who can remind them they're not alone." I opened the folder. My hands were shaking. I looked through it. Programs to help with money, support groups for when your family cuts you off, legal clinics that specialized in elder abuse. It had everything. It was so professional. It was exactly what I wish I'd had when I needed help. "You don't have to decide right now," Rachel said softly. "Take your time. Heal up, get your strength back. But just know there's a place for you here, Margaret. Not just to live, but to be a part of what we're doing." I looked at the young woman who tested me in the snow, the one who built a whole foundation to help people like me. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. "I want to help," I said, and my voice was stronger than it had been in months. "I want to be part of this." Rachel reached over and squeezed my hand. "Good, because you're exactly the kind of person we need." As she got up to leave, I had one last question. "Does Marcus know where I am?" Her face changed, becoming carefully blank. "No, and he won't, unless you want him to. You're safe here, Margaret. Totally safe. He has no power over you anymore." After she left, I just sat by the window looking down at the Chicago streets. Somewhere in this city, in Naperville, Marcus and Amanda were probably waking up on Christmas morning, opening presents, eating breakfast, just going on with their lives like they hadn't thrown a woman out to die the night before. They thought I was gone, that I just disappeared, maybe even that I was dead. But I was here alive, warm and safe, and for the first time since I sold my house and moved to Neepville, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was going to be okay. That first week I mostly just slept. My body needed it. The hypothermia took more out of me than I realized, and all the years of stress before that had left me empty in a way that was more than just being tired. So I slept and ate the meals that showed up at my door, and slowly, I felt my strength coming back. By the second week, I started to go outside my apartment. The building had a common room on the second floor, and that's where I met them. The other residents of the Morrison Foundation, other people who'd been thrown away by their own families. There was Barbara, 78, whose daughter had forged her name on a reverse mortgage and just vanished with the money. There was Robert, 82, whose son tricked him into signing over power of attorney and then sold his house while he was in the hospital. There was Susan, 69, whose entire family had slowly drained her retirement account over 5 years, always with a new emergency, a new crisis, a new reason why she just had to help. Their stories were my story. The details were different, but it was the same thing. Family members who used love to get what they wanted and saw loyalty as a weakness. The hardest part, Barbara said during one of our group meetings, is accepting that this meant to hurt you, that it wasn't a mistake or some misunderstanding. They knew exactly what they were doing. I understood that completely. All the mental gymnastics I did trying to make excuses for Marcus, trying to blame Amanda for everything, trying to convince myself my son still loved me somewhere deep down. The truth was simpler and a lot more painful. He chose to hurt me over and over on purpose. Rachel ran some of the group sessions herself, and watching her with the other residents, I started to really understand her. This wasn't just some charity project for her. This was personal. This was her way of saving her grandmother's memory by saving all of us. You're not responsible for fixing broken people, she said during one session. Your job is to protect yourself and set boundaries. Love doesn't mean you have to sacrifice yourself until you're destroyed. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd spent my whole adult life thinking that good mothers gave up everything, that love meant giving until you had absolutely nothing left. But Rachel was saying something else. She was saying that saving yourself wasn't selfish, and that boundaries weren't betrayal. It was a tough lesson to learn at 71, but I was trying. By the third week, Rachel asked me to sit in on some interviews. We're screening a new resident, she said, a woman whose family has been stealing from her. I think hearing from someone who's been there might help her feel less alone. The woman's name was Helen, and she was 65. With kind eyes and shaking hands, she told us her story in a quiet voice. It was about her son who moved in after his divorce. He promised it was just for a bit, but then he slowly took over her money until she had nothing. I saw myself in every single thing she said. They make you feel like you're being dramatic. Helen said, tears just rolling down her cheeks. Like you're selfish for wanting your own money, your own space, your own life. They make you feel like you're the problem. You're not the problem, I said, and my voice came out a lot stronger than I expected. They are, and you're not alone. What they did to you, it's abuse. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, and you didn't deserve any of it. Helen looked at me like I'd just thrown her a lifeline, and I realized something really important. My experience, as awful as it was, had a purpose. I could use it to help others, to tell them their feelings were valid, to show them that they could survive. After that, I got a lot more involved at the foundation. Rachel asked for my opinion on how they handle new people. How do you know if someone's being used? What are the warning signs the case managers should look for? How do you help someone who's been taught to defend the person hurting them? I knew the answers because I'd lived it. I helped them write up safety plans. How do you protect people from family members who just show up demanding to see them? How do you create rules without making it feel like a prison? How do you balance compassion with being protective? I started running support groups, sharing my story and listening to others share theirs. And something amazing happened. The more I talked about what Marcus and Amanda did to me, the less of a hold those memories had on me. The shame started to go away. The guilt started to fade. And under all of that, I found anger. A good, healthy anger at what they'd done. Not the kind that eats you alive, but the kind that makes things clear. The kind that says, this was wrong, I deserved better, and I will never let anyone treat me this way again. Rachel noticed the change in me. You're coming back to yourself, she said one afternoon in her office. I can see it. The woman you were before they broke you, she's still there. I don't know if I'm the same person, I admitted. Too much has happened. You're not supposed to be the same person, Rachel said. You're supposed to be better, stronger, wiser. You take the pain and turn it into a purpose. That's how you win. Win. I hadn't thought about it that way. But she was right. This wasn't about revenge in the old-fashioned sense. It was about taking myself back, proving they hadn't destroyed me, and building something good from the wreckage of what they'd left behind. I started working with the Foundation's legal team, learning about laws for elder abuse, the rules on financial exploitation, and protective orders. I learned how to document the abuse, how to gather proof, and how to help other seniors fight back against the family who'd stolen from them. And I learned something else too, something that mattered. I was good at this, really good. Being a nurse helped me get the medical side of things. I understood their vulnerability. My own past helped me see the emotional games, and something inside me that had been asleep for years, some tough, protective instinct, just roared back to life. I wasn't just getting by anymore. I was thriving. I had a purpose that had nothing to do with Marcus or Amanda or anyone who hurt me. I had a group of people who actually understood. I had work that meant something. And I had something else, too. Something I lost back in Naperville. I had myself back, the woman who'd worked in ERs for 40 years. The woman who raised a kid by herself. The woman who survived losing her husband and just kept going. She'd been buried under years of mind games and being put down. But she wasn't gone. She was here in this building doing this work, in this new life. And she was ready for whatever was next. 3 months after Christmas Eve, my phone rang. I knew the number. It was Marcus. I just stared at it for a second, my thumb right over the ignore button. But Rachel, who was sitting across from me, just shook her head. "Answer it," she said quietly. "You're ready." "Moon." I wasn't sure I was, but I answered it anyway. "Mom." It was Marcus's voice, but it sounded different. Strained, desperate. "Mom, I have to talk to you. We need your help." And just like that, I knew something had happened. Something really bad. And they were running to me to fix it just like always. Except this time, everything was different. This time, I was different. "Mom, are you there?" His voice was so thin over the phone, so fragile. Nothing like that cold, confident tone he used when he kicked me out. I took a deep breath before I answered. "I'm here." Thank God. I could hear the relief in his voice. "Mom, we need to talk. It's important. Can we meet?" I looked at Rachel. She was watching me with these calm, supportive eyes. She gave me a little nod. "All right," I said. "There's a coffee shop on Clark Street, tomorrow at 2. I gave him the address and hung up before he could say anything else. The old me would have asked what was wrong right away. I would have rushed to help before I even knew the problem. But the new me, the one who'd spent 3 months putting herself back together, knew better. Whatever their crisis was, it wasn't my emergency anymore. The next day I got to the coffee shop 15 minutes early and picked a table by the window. Rachel offered to come, but I said no. This was something I had to do alone. Marcus walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, and I barely recognized him. He looked awful. His clothes were wrinkled. His face was tight. His eyes looked like he hadn't really slept in weeks. He saw me and hurried over, sliding into the chair across from me. "Mom, I'm so glad you're okay," he started. "We've been trying to find you for months. Nobody knew where you went. I was worried sick." Worried sick. Those words might have meant something once. Now, they just felt empty. "What do you need, Marcus?" He flinched when I said it so directly. "Can't I just be happy to see you?" I said nothing. I just waited. He crumbled pretty fast. Okay, you're right. We have a problem, a big one. The house is in foreclosure. The bank is taking it next month. Amanda's boutique went bankrupt. I still haven't found a steady job. To work, we're in deep, Mom. The cards are all maxed. They're going to take the cars. We've got nowhere to go. I get it. I know I screwed up. The words just started pouring out of him. I know Christmas Eve was a huge mistake. Amanda was freaking out. Her parents were right there. Things got pretty intense, but you have to get that we were under so much stress. And you got to admit, you weren't exactly easy to be around sometimes. And there it was. The blame game, the excuses. The little hint that I somehow brought this on myself. "So you came here for money," I said quietly. "I'm here because you are my mom," Marcus said, but his eyes gave him away. "And I know you've got some savings put away. Maybe from your pension or whatever. Anything you can spare would help us get back on our feet. Just enough for to catch up on the mortgage. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate." I looked at my son. Really looked at him, and just felt this cold, distant sadness. This man had taken it all from me. My home, my money, my dignity. He threw me out in a blizzard to die, and now he's sitting here asking for more. "No," I said plain and simple. "No." He looked totally confused, like that answer wasn't even a possibility. "No, Marcus, I'm not giving you any money, not now, not ever." His face went hard. "So that's it then. You're going to let your own grandkids end up on the street because you're holding a grudge." "Those children are not my responsibility," I said. My voice didn't even shake. "They're yours. You're the one who chose to have them. You chose to blow money you didn't have. You chose to empty my accounts and run up debt, in my name. Those were your choices, and now you have to live with them. I can't believe you're being this selfish," he said, his voice full of anger. "After everything we did for you. We gave you a place to live. You gave me a place to live." I leaned forward. "I gave you $400,000. I paid your mortgage for months. I bought your groceries. I filled your gas tank. I watched your kids. You took every single thing I had, and then you threw me out when I had nothing left. That's not how it happened. That's exactly how it happened. And I'm done pretending it didn't." Marcus's face twisted up in frustration. "So what am I supposed to do?" I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. Inside was a list of resources I'd put together with the foundation's help. Community help programs, food banks, housing services, job agencies. Everything a person in your situation would need. These are resources that can help you. I said, sliding it across the table. Social services, financial counselors, emergency housing. There are people who can walk you through this, but I'm not one of them. He stared at the folder like it was poison. You're really not going to help us. I'm giving you information on where to find help. That's more than you gave me when you tossed me out in a blizzard. Marcus shot up, his chair scraping the floor. You know what? You're right. You are selfish. Amanda was right about you all along. You're a bitter, vengeful woman, and you've never cared about anyone but yourself. I watched him storm out of the coffee shop, and all I felt was relief. The old me would have caved. I would have offered money I didn't have, would have sacrificed myself again trying to save people who refused to be saved. But not this time. Margaret finally got it. Being compassionate doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. And love isn't supposed to mean destroying yourself. Some people only think you're valuable when they can take something from you. I left the folder on the table and just walked out. 3 months later, I was on a stage in front of 200 people for the grand opening of the Morrison Foundation's newest senior living center. It was beautiful. Brand new apartments for seniors, getting away from financial abuse offices, counseling centers, legal clinics, everything we dreamed of when we started planning it a year ago. Everything I helped design. When I was kicked out of my son's house on Christmas Eve, I said into the microphone, my voice carrying out to the crowd, I thought my life was over. I was 71 years old with nothing, no home, no money, no family. I was ready to die in the snow. The audience was dead silent, just listening. But someone saw me that night, someone who understood that dignity isn't something your family gives you. It's not something that can be taken from you by people who say they love you. Dignity is something you choose for yourself every single day when you refuse to let anyone make you feel small. I saw Rachel in the front row smiling with pride. This building represents that choice. For every senior who's been told they're a burden, for every person who's been used by family members who should have protected them, for everyone who thought they were alone, you're not alone. We see you, we believe you, and we're here to help you remember who you are. The applause was deafening. As I stepped off stage, I caught a glimpse of them in the back of the crowd, Marcus, Amanda, and their 2 children, looking small and awkward around all these people celebrating something they couldn't understand. They'd come probably hoping to guilt me into helping them one more time, hoping to use my big moment to remind me of my so-called obligations. But I didn't even look at them, didn't even pause. I walked past them like they were strangers, because that's what they'd become. I walked toward Rachel, toward Barbara, and Robert, and Susan, and Helen, and all the others who'd become my real family. The chosen family I'd built from the ashes of the one that had burned me. I walked into the light of my new life, leaving the past behind not with hate or bitterness, but with something way more powerful. Clarity. I knew who I was now. Not Marcus's mother, not Amanda's victim, not a woman defined by what others had taken from me. I was Margaret, a survivor. An advocate, someone who helped others find their way back to themselves. And that I realized as the sun broke through the clouds above us, that was the best revenge of all. Not hurting them, but becoming someone they couldn't control anymore.